Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina wa Maulana Muhammadin wa alihi wa azwajihi wa zurriyyatihi ajma'in. This is our last session on our reading of this article, short article, The Truth About Democracy. So the last section is about the Islamic Revolutionary response. We are Islamic revolutionaries. We are not idealists and we are not pragmatists. So what's the difference between Islam revolutionary and idealist and pragmatist? Idealists in this context make or construct abstract models abstract models. So for example, ideal state, individuality in society in Medina, for example. And they want to replicate that today. But the ideals never exist and will never exist. So basically, such a point of view, its basic purpose is really to criticize whatever good is done around them without actually able to do anything, because whatever will they do would come short of the ideal type or the model which they have constructed. Pragmatists, on the other hand, are the exact opposite of idealists. Pragmatists think that there can't be any revolution. So the reality is as it is, and we can make a few changes here and there, but no fundamental change is possible. So their strategy is basically to forget about ideals and try to compromise and try to find your place under the sun, really. That's the pragmatist. Islamic revolutionary, on the other hand, is in between these two. So we hold fast to our principles, but we also take the actual reality seriously. We struggle in this reality which we have inherited to change this reality and embody our principles in this reality. But we also realize that this reality is always going to be a reality with a lot of shortcomings, because in this dunya, in this world, we can't create paradise, and the real purpose is to struggle, to try our best, because that is the form of worship, that is our duty. So Islamic revolutionary realizes that the struggle is a permanent element. The struggle between Hezbollah and Hizb Shaitan is permanent reality of this transitory world. Okay. So we recognize that the Islamic revolutionary strategy is contextualized within the global capitalist order. So that's the reality. We can't ignore this reality. A global Darul Harb. Not in fiqhi sense necessarily, but from the sense of the hakikat, in Imam Ghazali's sense. Islamic revolutionaries seek to implode capitalist order, so we want complete change by intensifying its inherent contradictions from within. So imploding the democratic governance process requires the following initiatives. Okay, the main thing is to create an Islamic individuality and non-capitalist individual. Islamic individuality is the individuality which rejects autonomy, because autonomy means that you determine your own self. Islam is the exact opposite of it. You determine yourself by the higher reality. So first we must seek to foster and strengthen non-autonomous, non-rational individuality, because that's what rationality is. Capitalist rationality at the mass level. So Islamic individuality, we need to create Islamic individuality. And creation of Islamic individuality requires not just intellectual education, but socialization. That's very important. So to realize that the way to create capitalist individuality is the capitalist process of socialization, through education, through entertainment, through sports, through other rituals and rites which are parts and parcel of a capitalist process of socialization. Similarly, Islamic individuality requires Islamic socialization, educations, rituals, a way of living, not only at the rational level, but at the level of feelings and passions, at the non-rational level, which requires rituals, which requires routines, which requires expression of love, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet, through hamd and naat and through different gathering, etc. So Islamic socialization is required to create Islamic individuality at mass level. That's very important. So first we must seek to foster and strengthen non-autonomous, non-rational individuality at the mass level. We must seek to intensify religious and spiritual consciousness, not just through education, but also through social rituals, which require social engineering. So, for example, through mahafil zikr, through mahafil naat, through all those social rights which Muslims have developed over centuries, and purify them, obviously, because those rights are susceptible to bidat and all those things. The promotion of Islamic culture, tradition, rites, and rituals is of central concern to Islamic Revolutionary, because masses don't live at the intellectual level, they live at the level of desires and passions and longing and feeling and all those. So without giving them Islamic outlet for the feeling through which they can develop Islamic personality, it's impossible to develop Islamic individuality at the mass level. We must draw close to the traditional Masliki circles. Like in our context, for example, Devandis and Barelvis and Khairabadis, Al-Hadis and Jafris and all those traditional Masliki circle and spiritual peers and mashaykhs who throughout our history, mashayikh obviously those mashaykhs who are belong to the legitimate salasil, not those who go against Sharia and all this. Spiritual peers and mashayikh throughout our history have been the spiritual and religious murshids of our masses. So you need a teacher. Murshid is a teacher. You need a teacher for your zahir. For fiqh, you also need a teacher for your batin. You need popular murshids. people, go back to and get guidance. It is they who have provided and promoted Islamic culture and tradition at the mass level and laid the foundation for the promotion of Islamic individuality. Islamic individuality is basically individuality which reject desires and accept love and truth, because love and truth are the exact opposite of desires. And in order to do that, you need to tame your desires, to discipline your desires. And that can only be done through discipline, traditional disciplines, through ihsan, through tasawwuf, and through, religious gatherings and rituals and rites. That's the first thing, to create Islamic individuality. The second thing is we must seek to organize masses under the leadership of mashayikh. So our imams are not the secular, are not the capitalists or bankers or other capitalists, politicians, but our leaders, our actual imams are mashayikh, ulama. And mosque is the central institution. So basically, to revive the mosque as a comprehensive institution where all the power is concentrated, administrative power as well as executive power, as well as guidance power, as well as judicial power, as well as police power. So mosque is a mega institution where we need to create our own micro police, micro justice system, micro guidance system, micro executive system, which ultimately becomes so powerful that it will overwhelm the existing institutions of police, bureaucracy, judiciary, etc. We must seek to revive and strengthen the system of Hidayah guidance, which have traditionally characterized tribal, brotherly, and Muhalla life. This is a method for democratizing society because its basis is guidance. On the other hand, democracy is the rejection of guidance and stratification, disempowering and deconstructing capitalist civil society and creating a state within a state. That's very important. Because revolution is nothing else but creating a state within a state and strengthening that alternative state until it is possible to actually overthrow the existing state. That's what revolution is. Revolution is not, just uprising without any, institutional backup. Third, so that's the third one. Third one is that we must seek to push back the circuit of capital through the creation of Islamic Tamwil system, Islamic businesses, which integrates the hundreds of thousands of halal businesses which have no transnational link with the money and capital market. So we want to create an Islamic economy, but unlike Islamic banking, we don't want to incorporate Islamic banking within the existing system. On the other hand, we need to create an Islamic business system which actually function outside the circle of capital. And we need to strengthen it so that it is able to overcome the actually existing business system one day. That's important. That's indispensable for revolution. So we must seek to push back the circuit of the capital through the creation of a Tamwil system which integrates the hundreds of thousands of halal businesses which have no transnational links with the money and capital market, spread throughout the country, freeing the masses from capitalist employment. Very important. Because capitalist employment is the way through, people are made slave of the system. can serve as a prime means for reducing the ability of the market role of social governance. So overcoming market through this Tamvili system. The emergence of a dynamic and vibrant, undocumented, because it is outside the circuit of capital. Undocumented halal economy can also serve as a means for reducing national dependence on imperialist commodity and financing supply chains. So national independence is important, but not for nationalism, but for Islamic revolutionary purpose. Fourth, the election process is not the way to revolution, but with all those three things, election can be a means to actually supporting the existing Islamic revolutionary work, and finally, it can be a means to overthrow the capitalist system as well. But it can be a means to throw the capitalist system only if it is supported by all those three systems first. Fourth, the electoral process should be used to deconstruct democratic governance. This requires a grassroots level unity among the major Islamic groups and parties, supported by major Islamic non-political organizations, and supported by all those three things we just mentioned, on the basis of an exclusively Islamic electoral agenda based on local governance structures, that is masjid and all, that have been created through a social institutionalization strategy we just mentioned. The electoral organization of social political consensus building is an exploitable weakness, especially of liberal democratic system. It presumes the universalizability of a capitalist, rationalist, autonomous individual, empowering non-capitalist individuality through electoral mechanism can subvert the democratic process. This suggests a negation of the negation in Hegelian term, as has been effectively shown in Iran. But this is only possible if we have already done all, or we are doing at the same time, the three works we just mentioned, creating an individuality, Islamic individuality, and creating Islamic institutions, empowering masjid, and third one, Tamvili system. In the context of that, electoral process can be a means for revolutionary change and for defending that work. For the effective use of the electoral mechanism to subvert the democratic process, the crucial requirement is the sustenance, social reproduction, and political empowerment of non-autonomous, non-rational, non-capitalist individuality. A detailed evaluation of the democratic processes is presented in a forthcoming book, Jamhuriyat Ki Hakikat, to be published in 2023 before the next election. Amin Ashar. Okay.